Hugh.
Hugh.
All right, we're here with Rebazar Muñoz, son of Tisziji. And Rebbe, could you tell us a couple of your favorite guitar players?
My guitar player, favorite guitar players are Carl Santana, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, B.B. King, and Prince, of course, Prince. But none compared to my dad, because my dad takes it out there, man. He reads it out there, man.
Is there any other differences or even similarities that you feel between those guitar players and what your dad does?
Well, they try to get deeper the spiritual, but none of these cats can get as deep as my father. I mean, he gets really deep, man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Hugh.
So your dad just played at the Falcon in Marlborough on the 10th of July.
I was there.
Yeah, how'd you feel about that?
I was there. No, like any other gig, it was outstanding. Especially the fact that he had Paul Shaffer and John Mandusky in the band. And that was really happening.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because those cats well too, man.
Yeah, you've heard those guys play a lot, right?
Oh yeah.
Over the years, they've been around.
Yep. Music, I digitized it too, and I'm to say that I've heard those cats a lot, man.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a pleasure to be there, man.
Absolutely, much needed, right? We need to hear the music, right? The healing. We need that, right?
No doubt. We definitely need the healing.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the healing of the music, what is it about the music of your dad's that you feel is healing?
I think when my father plays, man, it's like he's taking on a spiritual journey through sound and other planets, and it's really creative, and his creative flows are still there, still definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so important.
Mm-hmm. So what about in terms of your dad's songs? Do you feel like his melodies provide any type of healing?
I feel like my dad's songs, my dad's melodies, and my dad's compositions create healing all the time, and he's always creating on the spot. And I'm a witness to that on the bandstand and in the studio.
So your dad Tisziji is a guitar player, but he's played with a lot of great horn players, including Pharoah Sanders, Dave Liebman, other guys like that. How do you think that fits in, or why do you think that's important to be associated with the horns?
That's a funny thing, because he's never played with other guitar players on stage. He approaches the guitar like it's a horn or saxophone, and that's what he creates, another saxophone. So that's another cool idea about what he was doing. My dad reads the musicians. He's not read by other musicians. He's always read the band, and he's had them impressive musicians in the band, like you said, Phil Saunders, Robbie Coltrane, Dave Raymond, Majeski, John Dougie, Paul Schiffer, Dave Raymond, Bob Moses, Jonathan Dumper. He was all the cats. And I totally dig it.
And you feel like, so your dad is leading them. The players are looking to him for leadership.
Yes, absolutely. They're always looking towards my dad for leadership. That's how it's always been, man. If you know what I'm saying.
And are they looking for leadership in just musical terms, or do you feel like they get something out of playing with him?
Sometimes they actually do get something spiritual out of playing. My dad, definitely.
So the players will convene and they'll come together and support and get behind your dad and support what he's doing?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So your dad has had opportunities in the music industry that he's turned down in the past.
Yeah, even from Phil Ramone.
Why do you think he did it?
Ask him. I think he did it just to keep his freedom and sanity, because you know, they cannot take advantage of musicians and take control of your music. And my dad never wanted to do that, and I understand when you're a musician at heart. Like me and my dad, I play a guitar myself. Not as good as him, but you know, when you play as proper with my dad, you want that freedom. You want to be able to create. You want to keep control of your music, and that's very important.
Yeah, so we were just talking about Prince, and rest in peace. He's passed on now.
Man.
Yeah. But we were talking about a time where he was trying to change his name or get away from the music industry because you want to talk a little bit about that?
He wanted to do his own thing, man. And the record label wanted to do that, and I've been listening to a lot of musical bios of musicians, and I'm learning about all the BS in the game. There's a lot of bullshit in the game, man. There's a ton of it. Where they tell you what to do, how to play, and how to act, and it's crazy.
We are the Guitar Brothers here.
Yeah, man.
Guitar Brothers.
Definitely.
We are the Creative Melody Brothers.
Absolutely.
We are the brothers of creative melodies.
Yeah.
We are the brothers of true heart music, heart fire sound.
Free freedom, pop,
Burn.
sound is where the world's at, man.
Burn sound.
Burn sound, baby. Burn sound.
Burn it.
I think I dig it.
So we love to have people hear the real side of the music. The entertainment side is real. We have a transit entertainment side. This is also real. Because we serve the musicians.
It's entertainment, not entertainment, right?
Entertainment,
Entertainment, man. If you can dig that play on words, which is very cool.
That's what we call our thing, entertainment.
Hot fire sound. Yes, he takes you out there, he leads you out there, and you're not coming back. Words by Paul Schaefer.
Thank you.
Was it true?
True.
True that, man. True. That had to put in the power there, man.
No, yeah, I could attest to that. I've been taken out, and I ain't going back.
Yeah, no doubt.
I can't, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and what we're talking about is the expanse of awareness that is initially assumed freedom. See? But it's beyond assuming freedom, it's actually being the freedom that makes the difference.
That's a good point. That being the freedom, man.
So it's easy to play free, in a manner of speaking, relative to traditional views or cultural views of playing free, without structure. But it's not really free until you're free of you. You have to be free of you to be free to know what it is that is the really free, that we tap into by opening to what it is. Having heard what it is, we open to what it is, so that we get closer to what it is in our own case.
Exactly.
Because we ultimately have to be there, that which it is.
Oh, man.
It's freedom. You think?
Freedom.
You got to free the freedom. That's good. Hugh.
Shoot.
So there's a lot of conversation about free. It's a beautiful concept.
And sing, too.
In singing. And so, you want to pursue that?
Like Barbara Streisand, Michael Jackson, once again he's singing Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Prince Sinatra. The great singers of all time, but that's not what we're talking about when we talk about my dad singing on the guitar. What we're talking about is like when it's kind of like how John Coltrane sings of his horn. It comes from the heart and soul. And I feel like that's what my dad does for the guitar. So that's where it fall out too.
So the word freedom is used as something people need to address. They need to be free to sing. They need the freedom to be able to sing. See? And this is true. It is a form of freedom. That's a level of freedom. See? Like the freedom to be human. See? It's like an inherent freedom. Everyone has a voice, so they have a right to sing. See? And it could be relatively good or bad or indifferent or whatever. It could just be a scream when you're crying. You still have the right to sing, and you have the freedom to sing, the opportunity to sing. But when we're talking about freedom, what do we actually mean by it?
Or spiritual expression and spontaneous improvisation.
Bravo.
That's how I mean by freedom.
And not what you think about it, but what it actually is.
Yes,
Beyond what you think about it.
Right.
And then we're talking about the unconscious coming in, which is not just a theory for the music that is being played, but then a step beyond that, which is the superconscious.
Oh, man.
Which, when you get there, nobody knows what's going on.
The super soul.
Super soul consciousness.
Yeah.
Amen.
Oh, yeah.
Amen.
Shoot off.
Shoot. Yeah, so we were talking about musicians who are looking to play more in the vein of what your dad is doing, play with more freedom. What do you have to say to them?
Good. If you want to, like, basically doing my dad, so you gotta start listening to yourself. And what I mean by that is that listen to your inner self and play what comes out of your heart and your soul, like what I'm John Coltrane does, because he's out there a lot too. And my dad does that now too, and I like outdoors music, so I should know. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we were just discussing, and we heard from Rebazar in terms of what musicians could be doing who want to play with more freedom, or work with this concept of freedom. And what do you feel about people on a concept of freedom? Do they need to get beyond?
Well, the concept of freedom can be a barrier to attaining what it actually is. See? So when we talk about freedom at this level, it means you have to have a need for out-of-body experience, basically. So it's out of self, thought, mind, image, say culture. You have to bear your soul, so to speak. And I use the word soul because it's not a cultural dimension of the human. It is the highest dimension of human. That's the inner master function of the human. See? And everyone's working towards that, and yet everyone is also avoiding that because it's demanding too much. Right? In a way, it demands of absolute, focus on it. See, and that's the heart. Say the inner master. That's really the heart, not just emotional heart, but it's source heart, the heart of hearts, so to speak. Almost as huge as the heart of the universe. That's how much it is. And so to open to that requires a certain kind of discipline that a lot of musicians are not interested in. They don't want to give up their fun lives. They play to have fun, and have good times with people. They play so that it justifies them being involved in various situations and people. And romances and love affairs are all sort of generated out of this kind of fun and egotism, which has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. So it has to do then with the pure selflessness, which is what Train graciously put up front for the people. He had a record of recording that I think he named Selflessness, because he knew from his relationship to the Dharma that it really is ultimately about selflessness, not about yourself, but turning your inside out. See, you have to turn yourself inside out. See, and as I say, you have to play from the deep inside out, beyond yourself, beyond your image, beyond your concern, beyond your gimmicks, right? Your theatrics and your drama, beyond your suffering. Yes, indeed, beyond all suffering. See, so how do we get to that place? It's a long journey, but it's doable. Okay? Start to recognize what the suffering is, why you hurt, why you feel what it is, why you're unhappy, why you're depressed, and what your emotions are, why do you desire. All these things are pulling you outside of what I'm talking about. See? It is the, let us say, stillness of the heart that this freedom comes from. Because it's relative to the essence of formlessness, which then gives you radical freedom. Because you're in the formless. There's no form then. It's the thing. It's formlessness. And loving, let us put it in those language, images, the form of formlessness. And it takes that kind of expansive awareness to be able to embrace it, so that when you think about music, you're thinking about confinement. You're thinking about a prison and a dungeon for many people. And not going beyond that dungeon, but getting better at that dungeon. Right? And those routines and those disciplines, those sounds, those mechanical sort of, forms of harmony, rhythm, melody, and then whatever ideas of freedom you have relative to that. But none of that is freedom. That's musical experimentation and exploration. but it's not freedom. It's not the heart expressing itself beyond yourself, which is the key, selflessness. People have to know that the selflessness factor is more important than the self, because you've always been a selfless being, but you haven't acted it because of conditioning that says, no, you have to be this kind of a self, or this kind of a self. Well, you got to be this guy. You got to be this girl. You got to be this kind of musician. Right? It's being imposed upon you. You're being suffocated at the level that you need to be liberated. And there you have it in a nutshell. You have to free yourself from yourself and have no self to get what it really is that you're capable of. Beyond self, beyond thought, beyond mind and world altogether. Hugh.
Hugh. Do certain forms of meditation, are they conducive to obtaining freedom?
That's determined by what you want to listen to. So it's all about listening. You see, according to certain schools, we have 5 bodies. There's an ancient wisdom. The 5 bodies. One is the physical body. Within the physical body, you have the subtle body, astral. Within the astral body, you have the causal body. Within the causal body, you have the mental body. Within the mental body, you have the soul body. And then from there, you're completely out of the universe, so to speak. All of these bodies are demanding, because they're all subject to the forces in the material universe. And so meditation is key, depending on who's listening, in which way to what dimension of your multiple or multi-bodied consciousness. Because then there's outer body, beyond the physical body. And that becomes a different kind of progress. To transcending even hearing, which is what eventually happens. You become the ear, then you, as the ear disappear. It's like the ear of disappearance, so to speak. So, to say, well, what are you meditating on? It's a big, huge question. It could be, music. That could be relative to physical performance. It could be relative to hearing emotional aspects of the music and feeling and soulfulness and so on. And then this process continues. And we wonder, since we listen to so much music, we're meditating on music so much, and we don't get anywhere, because we are limiting our meditative skills to something that is less than what we are and less than what we need. Right? Be careful of what you listen to, because you might become it. See, sound becomes you, you become sound. Listening to something outside of yourself too much can limit you and have a dark effect upon you, depending on what it is. Or it can freeze you, it can hold you in its pattern for ages, depending on you. And we see that very clearly in terms of the evolution of the musician. They have to listen and study. Singers and musicians have to imitate, duplicate as much as they can to master certain skills by virtue of advancing through certain levels of technique and mastery, which is the key here, mastering of what? To be able to play a certain way in a certain culture, under specific circumstances, according to whether or not you're teaching it or performing it or just horsing around with it. So hearing is not necessarily being, and being is not necessarily hearing. But we use the word freedom and being in a unique sense at the level of the transformative aspects of this kind of evolution. People listen to become that. They don't exactly always listen to become more than that, because they have to become that first. And then whatever happens, you either stay as that, hypothetically, in terms of what you're listening to, and maybe play only that piece of music or form of music or school of music. So then it becomes a matter of where's freedom in any of that. And we have to go back to this theory of the multi-bodied configuration of human consciousness. Because what we're not talking about is the nobody. We need to talk about the nobody. Did you ever think that you were nobody? We don't mean that socially or egoically, but we are the nobody, the non-body. See? In other words, we have to be perceiving the light body in order to get to this kind of super sensitive, let's say, sonic dimension of hearing without ears. Perceiving it, right? As if you were a medium. Okay? Spiritual, then it becomes subtle essences that become what inform you when you are clear enough to be used by it or channel it, so to speak. So we have a long road of progression and purification before us to arrive at the mastery of being beyond freedom beyond freedom.